Hello everyone, today let's solve the problem number 197, rising temperature, right? So what the question states here, we have a table named weather. You can clearly see here, we have a table named weather with the following columns. See here, ID, record date as well as the temperature. So ID is of the type integer, record date is of the type date and temperature is of the type integer, right? So I hope this is clear. So here in this case, ID unique identifier for each row. This one ID is unique identifier for each row, which is of type int, and record date is nothing but it is of type date, the date when the temperature was recorded. So here record date is nothing but the date when the temperature was recorded, and finally the temperature here, the recorded temperature on the date, right? So we need to find all the IDs where the temperature is higher than the previous day's temperature. So here what we need to find, here we need to find IDs where the temperature is higher than the previous day's temperature. Here you can clearly see we have 1 2 3 4 ID. Based on ID we have 4 IDs, right? So record date, here they have given 1/1/15 2015, 2/1/15, 3 1 2 3 and 4 date, right? So 2015 they have considered. So here in this case 10 25 30, 10 25 20 and 30 they have given. Here in this case they have considered 25, that is nothing but the ID 2, and the 30 they have considered where temperature is greater than this one. Temperature is greater than 25 here. In this case 30, right? So we cannot consider 10 and 20 here. So we have to consider in this case 2 and 4. Here they have clearly mentioned in 2/1/2015 the temperature was higher than the previous day. Here you can clearly see 2/1/2015, previously it was 10, now it is 25, so obviously it is greater than the previous day, right? In 4/1/2015 the temperatures was higher than the previous day, right? Here this is 20 greater than 30. So here we are considering these two, this one second and the third one. So this is greater than the previous one, nothing but greater than 10, and this is greater than 20, nothing but 30 here in this case. So we have to return the output 2 and 4 in this case. So previous day's temperature has to be smaller than the current day's temperature, so that IDs we need to return, right? So that's what they have given here. So I hope the question is completely clear. What we need to do is completely clear as well here in this case, right? So I hope this is clear. So quite obviously one more thing, I have said this one earlier. So this is 25, so even temperature 3 if is smaller than the this one, even though this is smaller than the ID2, in this case we are going with the 4 because it is greater than the third one, right? So this we have to keep in mind, just keep this in mind. So let's discuss the approach first initially, then let's write the let's discuss the approach step by step here. The first step, we will be making use of the self join on the weather table. So we will be making use of self join on the weather table. Just keep this in mind. This is first step, right? So second step here is, after making use of the self join on the weather table, we will join weather, nothing but W1 in this case, with itself W2. So we will join weather W1 with itself W2 on the condition that record date of W1, nothing but W1 dot record date, is exactly 1 day after W2 dot record date. So that's what we discussed in example 1 as well, that they have mentioned in the question. So here we use self join on the weather table. The second thing here is we join the weather W1 with itself W2 on the condition that W1 dot record date is exactly 1 day after W2 dot record date, right? I hope this is clear. Here, why we are doing this? This allows to compare each day's temperature with the previous day's temperature. So current temperature has to be compared with here. Current temperature has to be compared with previous temperature, right? This is what we have discussed in the question. So basically why we are doing this one, step 1 and step 2 that we discussed here, because so this allows to compare each day's temperature with the previous day's temperature. This is the reason we will be going with a self join, as well as after self join we'll be joining whether w1 with itself on the condition w1 dot record date is exactly 1 day after w2 dot record date. I hope this is clear. Let's come to the third point here. What the third point states here, we will filter out only those w1 dot temperature is greater than w2 dot temperature. So W2 has to be always greater than W1 accordingly with the question. So they have clearly mentioned the current day temperature has to be greater than the previous day temperature, right? So in this case, this will be the current day and this will be the previous day. So current day's temperature, nothing but W2 dot temperature. Sorry, this one is current day, this one is previous day. Sorry. So here this one W1 dot temperature has to be greater than W2 dot temperature at any cost. So we will filter out only those where W1 dot temperature is greater than W2 dot temperature. We will only filter out those, right? So meaning that temperature increased from the previous day. So that's what they have asked in the question, right? I hope this is clear. Let's move on with the final step. Finally, we will select the ID column. So we will be going with the ID column, or we will select the ID column from W1 as required. So finally we will select the ID column from W1 as required. So we have to return the IDs. If you you would have observed the output. So while I said while we considered the first example in the question, so we have to return the IDs where the temperature of the current day was greater than the previous day, right? So here finally we will select the ID column from the W1 as required. So this is the approach that we will be going with, right? I hope the approach is completely clear, right? So now let's start writing the query. So first what we'll do here, we will select the ID of the record where temperature increased from the previous day. This one we have to articulate in the form of query. So I'll just use select keyword here, w1 dot id. So let me write this one, w1 dot id. This is fine. So the next step, after selecting the id of the record, so after selecting the id of the record where temperature increased from the previous day, we have to treat w1 as the main table. Nothing but it represents the current day's data, right? So we will go with from keyword here, from weather w1. This is fine. After treating w1 as main table representing the current day's data, we have to join the weather table with itself. So that's what we discussed in the approach as well. We are going with the self join, right? So we will go with the self join, the first step in the approach that we discussed, right? We will join the weather table with itself, nothing but self join, to compare each day with the previous day. That's what we need to do, right, to get the current day's temperature. So I'll just go with a join here, join weather w2, self join. So this is fine. So why this is showing like this, it has to be I, sorry. Yeah, this is fine. So the next step here is we have to match each row's date, nothing but w1, with the previous date w2. So we discussed this one as well, right? So let's articulate the same thing in the form of query. So I'll just give you on w1 dot record date equals date, this one underscore add w2 dot record date comma interval 1 day. This is fine. So the final step is we have to filter only those records whose today's temperature is higher than yesterday's. This was the final step, if you remember, the fourth step, right? So we have to we are filtering, or we have to filter out only those records where today's temperature is higher than yesterday's. So that one we need to articulate in the form of query. So here let me write where w1 dot temperature, yeah, greater than w2 dot temperature. This is fine. This is it for the query. So let me hit the run button. So here you can clearly see the sample test case is getting accepted, right? So let me hit the submit button quickly. I hope this works for all the test cases. Let's see. So here you can clearly see all the test cases are getting passed. Means the query works absolutely correct on this case, right? So I hope whatever the query that we have written is completely clear. For now, this is it. Thanks for watching, guys.